Chris,
Yes,
podcast 76, and
it
we are
is.
both severely fired up,
Agitated,
agitated, irritated,
triggered.
triggered, annoyed,
Hmm.
fuming.
Hmm.
I can't think of anything else. But
Chafed.
yeah, we're chafed. This is
I'm
literally
chafed.
this is chafing us here.
This is
And
chafing me.
all right, so I want to say first,
Let's get right into
first.
it.
Let's. I want to say it first though,
Good,
because I
get into
told
it.
you I wanted to say it. This is by no means to bash anybody, make fun of anybody, or anything of that nature. It's to educate to make sure people do the right thing so they don't have failures, right?
Hmm.
And
I
right?
mean, we're going to go over some certain scenarios, and you may want to do this process for a certain reason,
Yeah.
but most people
And
aren't.
right. And it's a one of them things where I think it's just another trend that people are jumping into before they learn the basics of food plotting. So,
Oh, it's a
welcome back to
trend.
the podcast, everybody. Welcome back. Um, Chris, why don't you why don't you explain a little bit what this podcast is about? Because we're
Well,
both chafed. We're chafed
we
and
we
triggered.
have been talking for the last 2 weeks about all the stuff that we're seeing on Facebook forums. And
Hmm.
some of them are in our own forum that we like to post on
Hmm.
called Domain Nation. Dave and I both use domain products. We are partnered with them. We help advertise for them. But one of the things that we've seen most recently that has us irritated,
Chafed.
chafed, is we've got guys that are planning fall blends this spring and summer and complaining about weeds and what they can do to control the weeds in their fall plots that they've already planted. And we're not even into June.
We yeah, it's insane. Um,
So, I mean, yes, the jug probably says it could be planted spring or fall. Anything could be planted any time of the year,
as
but
long as
is
you
it
got
the right time to be
yeah.
planting it?
Yeah, we can plant anything as long as the temperatures are adequate. You can
Yes,
plant brassicas, you can plant winter wheat, you can plant oat. I mean, you can plant anything you want in the spring as long as it's adequate soil temperatures.
correct.
But does it make sense?
Does it make sense?
So, yeah. So what we're seeing is, like you said, guys are
People are
planting.
panicking.
Yes, they're planting.
Panicking because they have
Uh,
weeds going out of control.
yep. So we had a podcast briefly. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 podcasts ago about planting fall plots, and it a weeds are concerning. I can't speak, but weeds are concerning in the spring when you plant.
Yeah.
And most times you are better off waiting to allow those weeds to germinate. So you get, because for instance, I can go to my farm and I have no ragweed, right? All of a
Hmm.
sudden I come back 2 weeks later, the ragweed's a foot tall,
Yeah.
2 feet tall. So
Hmm.
you have to wait in order for this stuff to germinate into the spring and summer before you can start planting. Otherwise, everything you plant is just going to be smothered with weeds. And
Yeah.
then when you plant your plots like that, what do you use to control the weeds?
Yeah, you
It,
can't be
it's
spraying this stuff.
yeah. So if you follow the proper steps in letting this stuff grow, letting the weeds germinate, letting the soil temperatures rise, kill it, then you can plant fall or a spring and summer blend. But you should not be planting brassicas at this time. I see one guy said, I saw he's like all excited. He planted his brassica plot. Now he's like, oh well, it's got a 100-day germination rate or maturity rate.
Right.
Why do you want it? Why do you want to plant it in end of May? Let it mature 100 days, and then what are you going to do for hunting season? It's already mature.
Yeah, it's gonna be too woody and stemmy and
Yeah,
undesirable.
yeah,
Sure, he's probably gonna the growing season. He's gonna hit the growing season perfectly. He'll probably have beautiful, picturesque tubers and bulbs and things to take pictures of. You know, but I thought the plan was to hunt over this stuff.
yeah. I'm not getting it. I'm
I'm
not
not
understanding.
following what this is about.
Yeah, now
There's obviously it is a following. Um,
people are doing it because it's a trend,
I,
and
I don't
I, I
understand.
I don't get it. And I said this to you the other day when we said we were going to do this podcast.
When we
That
talked about reasons why you might want to do it,
yep, the only reason that I can see, which there's better, I believe there's better options, but the only
yeah,
reason that I can see planting brassicas this time of year is if you were trying to improve your soil by creating green manure.
hmm
You're letting the bulbs grow, you're letting the leaves grow, and you're turning that back in to the soil for green manure to plant an actual fall plot when the time is right. I
well,
see
I've seen. I'm sorry, I've seen the words nurse crop a lot
nurse crop.
lately.
Yeah, right.
They're trying to say that some of the blends are gonna, with the oats and the brassica canopy, they're thinking that it's gonna nurse because a lot of people are planting clovers and chicories underneath a brassica blend, and if it's thick enough to deter weeds, don't you think it's thick enough to deter the clover too?
Yeah, I saw
I
that
mean,
too, where they're
to a certain extent,
yeah, yeah,
I
they're
mean, yeah,
using
it's
it.
gonna be under there.
I see them
Yeah,
using it for a nurse crop. Like you
yeah,
said, it canopies over,
hmm
and you're going to shade out everything below. I believe
right,
a nurse crop is vertical stems,
yeah,
wheat, oats, rye. Mix that in
yeah, your
as a
grains and
as a
things.
nurse crop,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
brassicas. But hey, I'm not seeing it.
No, and the thing is, like I said, they're putting the clovers and the chicories and things in, mixing it with something else with a fall blend, and they're just freaking because they want to me if they want to spray the weeds and things. What's their plot? What's their plan? What do they want? Do they want the clover and the chicory, or do they want the brassicas? I mean, why are you planning? Like you said, there's better options. Why would you plant brassicas to try to nurse, or or even the green manure wise? Why would you want brassicas for green manure?
Yeah, I
I
mean you
mean,
can plant buckwheat or
unless they're putting in tillage radish to try to bust up the hard pan, and then they're going to go back and disc that in. I
yeah,
could
but
see
from
that
what
maybe,
what
but
we're seeing, that's not what they're using it for.
no,
They're
no,
literally one.
no. They're literally planting fall plots now.
Yeah, I saw a 50 I can't speak today. I saw a 50-50 mix of people using it for a cover crop, or they were literally planting the fall plot now.
Yeah. And
Why?
where's this coming from?
Where's it coming from? I don't know. And it's not just in the group. It's in I've seen it everywhere.
Oh
I've
yeah,
seen it all over. It's all over the social media now.
yeah.
That hey, it's one of them things I think where one person says something, and then people misunderstand what they say, and then they just go with it, and then it just creates a domino effect, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah,
I just I mean, before people, I'm all about experiments, but
yeah.
you I, in order most people and most of these people that are planning this stuff are failing. They fail.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they post in pictures, and their plants that they plant in the woods, everything's laying over. Everything's just laying over from no
Well,
sun
and they have
and
the disclaimer all the time. I'm new to this. Can you
yeah,
help me?
right,
Or that type of thing.
right.
And I don't even know if they're new to it. I think they just failed and they don't want to admit it,
Right.
and they're just like, help, you
Yeah.
know. So there's better options. Why don't we talk about some better options? Obviously, buckwheats and, like you said, vertical things, grains, oats, wheat, that type of thing. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, there's better options because then you just go and mow it down to nothing, or you could spray it, kill it. You could till it back in green manure wise, that type of thing. Uh,
You know what's interesting too is that I have never used a nurse crop.
I
I've
never have.
never this trend of nurse crops came up 5, 6 years ago where they really started picking up. All of a sudden now it's a you need nurse crops. Dude, I've never needed a nurse crop ever to
No,
plant a food plot. Never.
no,
It's
because your clover, your perennial clovers grow so slow as it is. Why would you want to handicap them by shading them out by a nurse crop?
yeah, I've
That's my
planted
opinion.
yeah, I planted tons of spring summer uh perennial clovers
Yeah,
plots. Never needed a nurse crop.
no,
It just grows. So
no. I just waited till the weeds popped and then I'd mow
right,
over it. You
right.
know,
Yep. And I just don't understand. I think
and
people are
and
jumping ahead.
and here's the other misnomer we talked about on another podcast was you don't necessarily mowing's not the answer either. I mean, but that keeps them at bay
Hmm.
long enough that if you mow over top of them, once if they start to get higher than your clovers, you just keep nipping them off, and then eventually you wait it out till late August or whatever, till the August September time when the weed competition slows way down, and it starts to chill off at night and things, and then the weeds aren't as bad. And that's what the fall plots are designed for, that type of stuff. It's designed for cooler weather and to get you into hunting season and not to be too mature, too woody, too stemmy, you know,
Yeah,
over
I mean,
over maturity.
yeah,
I mean, if your plot isn't desirable come hunting season, obviously you're not going to see deer. They're going to be running to the acorns, the apples, whatever else, the neighbors' plots, you know. So you want it to be desirable. And you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're planting food plots right now for fall.
yeah.
If you're putting fall
Well,
stuff in now, you're just not. I don't know. Maybe you, like you said, misinformed.
obviously you can manipulate uh, plant attractiveness through the dates when you plant. So like we had Mike on the podcast from Domain, and he explained it pretty good. It's basically if you want the deer to hammer your fall food plots, you plant them earlier in the
Primarily,
season.
yeah,
If you want that attraction early season, you plant them later into the you know in into the year. Um, because they'll be young and tender. If you plant them in the say July or some areas early August, they become very mature and they'll be good for late season. But all these people are jumping on these certain trends and stuff that when they haven't learned the basics. They haven't learned the basics of food plotting. All these guys that are doing this, they're still not doing soil samples. They're still not doing the basics of plant health. They're not having adequate sun. They're not soil testing. They're not adding lime. They're planting brassicas and then wanting to know how to control the weeds. You need to start with the basics first. You need to go
yeah.
back to the beginning, learn the
Well,
beginning, learn the basics, and then go from there.
and let me add this: those guys that are looking for herbicide, they can do without the herbicide and quit freaking out. They could actually go mow. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you mow oats and things, it'll continue to grow like grass. It
Hmm.
is a grass, and you can actually believe it or not, you can mow brassicas, the greens on the brassicas, and they will come back. I've seen videos where guys have actually gone out and scalped their brassicas, and a couple months later, they was back to bushes. You know,
Mhm.
they will bounce back as well.
The
I'm
hybrid
not,
brassicas.
yeah, I'm not saying go scalp it, but I'm saying you can mow if your weeds are getting higher. You just clip the tops off.
Mhm.
And the stuff will continue to grow. I mean, think about it. The deer come and they nip them off, and they keep growing. So
Mhm.
if you have a good brassica blend, but
Yeah, it's the same as, wheat and rye. They take a bite of it,
yeah,
continues to grow.
it'll continue to grow. So you can
Um,
actually mow some of that. I'm not telling people to go out and scalp it down. Just trim over it like you would as if it was just clover and you had high grass.
mhm.
You can. I'm not saying that's going to totally control it, but it's going to keep it at bay until you get into some cooler weather.
Well, people freak out over weeds, over
Yeah,
us.
I mean,
Everybody wants to jump to a herbicide, but I mean,
well,
sometimes
and
it's.
I mean, if you're completely overtaken, I get it, but if it's just couple sprigs here and there, or a thistle there, or you know, I don't, I don't think you have to have a picturesque plot for the deer to eat it. They're going to come in there anyhow.
Mhm.
Now, I, for instance, when you was here 2 weeks ago and we walked over across the road and looked at my plots, there was just a couple of high sprigs here and there, and there was a couple thistles there. It didn't look bad, did it?
Mm.
I went over the other night and the grass was just as high as the clover and coming over it. So, you know what I did the other night? I went over and mowed again.
Mhm.
So, I went over and mowed, but I'm getting ready to do weed control and spray IMOX anyhow. I always spray at least one douse of IMOX early on just to make sure I got a handle on things so I don't.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, it's been raining for 2 weeks now, and I couldn't get over there to keep checking it every night. And I got lazy and didn't go over and check it every night. And then I went over the other night with the mower and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to mow this now. Because if not, that high grass goes to seed and then you have worse problems.
Mhm.
It's just going to spread that seed out when you do mow it, So, yeah, that's what I was up against.
What else do you have to cry about? What else are you chafed about?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
I'm chafed about
He's chafed.
brassica about brassicas planting in the spring.
You are chafed.
I'm upset. And it's fun. We did I think the last podcast we briefly mentioned this or something, but I had a guy comment um on YouTube, and he's baffled as well. He's like, I don't get it.
Oh,
Why
I seen that post. Yeah.
I sent it to you, I think.
Yeah.
But he's like, why is this happening?
Yeah, why are
Um,
people planning it now? And just because the jug says it doesn't mean you have to do it.
here it is. Here, I sent it to you yesterday. He says, from George, he says, it's driving me nuts that people are planting brassicas right now, and it's just not as a fall. It's way too early, just because the label says it can be planted this time of year. And
Yeah.
I replied and I said, dude, I'm baffled as well. We're recording a podcast about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
not
just,
even officially summer yet, and people are planting fall food plots.
yeah, I'm law. I don't get it.
I don't know. I've never heard of anybody planting brassicas this early, unless they was going to turn it in, like you said.
Well, I mean, they can be planted this
Sure.
time of year. I mean,
And the deer will eat them.
yeah, they'll eat them, but and I guess in some states they would burn. They'll burn out. They
Could
be
from the
they
heat.
would be susceptible to drought.
Yeah.
Really. Then big leaves on there and everything with the sun. I mean, they'll burn out. Um, but like I said, the only reason I can see would be for green manure, but even then, there's better options, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, if people focused on vertical, if they need a nurse crop, focus on oats. Plant your clover with oats.
Well,
Plant it.
let's put it this way. I'm going to try to get you to say something. Why is someone planting a nurse crop? To
Why? Yeah,
protect what's underneath, right?
yeah.
So,
The oats are going to grow faster than the clover.
right. So their worry is the plot's going to get wiped out, right? So my next question is, how big is your plot?
Mm.
Is it not able to take the pressure? If it isn't, maybe you need to plant more acreage or bigger plots. If you need a nurse crop, right away, that's a red flag to me. You know,
Well, I
you
think also people are using the nurse crop too to help prevent weed growth and stuff too.
weed growth, hold moisture. I've seen everybody say it. You know, this, that, and the other. Um, but there again, we're up north. People in the south might need that. I don't know.
Well, another thing too is people when it comes to food plot. I mean, I don't. We get the jugs or whatever from Domain, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from Domain. But hold on one second, I gotta sneeze. All right, I'm back. Uh, False alarm. It doesn't have to be from Domain, but a jug of seed might say a half acre. Okay, whatever
Right?
it says, it might say 3 pounds. Now, Brassicas, I tend to follow what it says because you can
Yeah,
definitely
you could
plant too many
oversee
brassicas.
that. Yeah.
But when it comes to clover and stuff like that, people, you're going by the jug. I get it. You're following what the jug says, but that jug is bare minimum. When it comes to a hat, whatever it is that you're planting. I overseed more. People are, they're cheap when it comes to seed.
Yeah.
You got to remember, not all of that seed you put out is going to germinate.
Right.
Some birds are going to eat it. It's going to get pecked away. It's going to wash out. Some of it's going to get buried too deep. So it's not all going to germinate. If people use the appropriate amount of seed and they added a little bit extra, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have all this extra room in your soil for
Right.
all these weeds to grow, and you wouldn't need a nurse crop.
Over across the road, I've got that 1 acre side, and the appropriate amount of clover would be somewhere between 7 and 9 pounds per acre, something to that effect. And I load up the spreader with 7 to 9 pounds, and it's like, holy smokes, I got to add more seed in this bag. There is
Hmm.
no way 7 to 9 pounds is going to cover this 1 acre.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah.
It
It's
would
bare
be so
minimum.
it would be so spotty. It would look like you know whose.
Yep. Yeah.
It would look like Spriggs's.
Yep.
You know Spriggs.
I know
It would look like
Sprigs.
his plots.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Clover. I add more poundage to it.
Oh,
I don't want.
definitely.
I don't want bare soil.
No.
I want thick. Lush. When it comes to buckwheat, and certain things like buckwheat, you don't want to go more than like 75 pounds per acre. Oats, you can kind of hammer at it. Wheat and rye, you can throw in tons of extra seed. Clover, you can add tons of extra seed. Even soybeans. A lot of guys are following, they're broadcasting soybeans at 50 pounds an acre. Dude, 50 pounds an
That's
acre
one
of
bag.
soybeans, that
That's
ain't nothing.
that's nothing.
When you're broadcasting, you could double or triple the amount of soybeans because if you use 50 pounds, that's a big seed, man. You're going to get wiped
Yeah.
out by turkeys,
Crows, man.
birds, crows, everything, and you're going to be left with 35
Spriggs.
pounds of seed. All these weeds coming up, and you're going to be screwed. If you
Yeah.
doubled or tripled that, it costs money, but if you
Yeah.
doubled or tripled it, you have a way better food plot. You
Would
know,
we would we plant when we broadcasted soybeans? What was that? 8 bags
my
on
farm.
yeah, on 3 acres? Did we
The old
eight
farm, it
bags
was, I did 150 pounds per acre.
per acre? Yeah, and we did three
Yep,
ponds
yep,
or
it
three
was
acres.
yeah, it was Hutchinson soybeans.
You did 9 bags. You did 9 bags on 3 acres then, yeah.
Came up, you can watch the video on YouTube, thick as could be.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
turned out alright.
corn, you shouldn't really broadcast corn. I mean, it will work, but
Oh yeah, I
Um,
got a video on that.
yeah,
I had a good turnout on broadcasting corn.
it can work.
In fact,
Um,
somebody just messaged me about that the other night. Was asking me about broadcasting corn.
yep. I mean, what else you got? You got cowpeas. They can be had a little heavy. Um, there's all kinds of different things people can grow. Uh,
Yeah, and
but
I mean, and that might be maybe they went maybe we're barking up the wrong tree here. Maybe they just didn't plant enough seed in these plots and they're getting bad weeds. Who
maybe
knows? Maybe the
I just
plot's so big and there's so much bare dirt and they didn't have enough seed to go around.
well remember we also saw people planting food plots back in early April
Yeah,
in these northern Pennsylvania. There's Pennsylvania guys that were planting in early April.
yeah,
The weeds haven't even germinated yet.
no,
You're going to be so wiped out by weeds. It's going to be insane.
yeah.
I I haven't even planted my food plots yet.
I haven't planted a seed.
I have
All my
not planted food
videos
plots.
and stuff I've been doing is established clover and chicory from
Yep.
past years that
I'm
we grew.
planning. Today is Wednesday, the
29.
29th. I'm not planning until not this weekend, but the following weekend.
Right.
The weeds have germinated, they have been sprayed, everything's been killed, and I am going in there basically not this weekend, next weekend. I'm planting my food plots, my incognito, Egyptian wheat, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah.
You
See,
know, and but you wait this long, you risk of getting drought. The further we get into summer, you risk of having no rain. But if you plant too early, when we're having adequate rains, you risk being wiped out by weeds. So
Mhm.
it's either way you go.
Well,
There's a,
I've
there's
had
a risk.
worse on a, if I was to tip the scale, I would say the weeds have done more damage to me than drought.
Hmm.
Because the drought, I can actually, uh, where I'm at, we get pretty heavy dew and
Right.
pretty good humidity, so that seems to get me through. But the weeds, man, that's tough because weeds never stop growing. It don't
Hmm.
matter if it's raining, drought, what weeds grow the best. You can be
Yep.
the best weed farmer, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, weeds will grow, and the tap roots are so long they can reach down so far they will never quit growing.
Hmm. They were there forever. Your
They're
biggest
there.
thing is to plant enough seed per acre and shade them suckers out until they can grow faster than the weeds to shade them out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's our spiel.
yeah. And I'm not into pre-emergent stuff, to be
No,
honest.
I mean, I think sometimes it's needed. I think if you're, I think farmers should use pre-emergence
I don't know how
instead of,
pre-emergents actually work.
which is, well, it
You know what I'm
prevents
saying?
prevents weeds from growing.
That's what, yeah, I get that, but how does it actually mode of action? You're
I
spraying it
don't
in the
know.
dirt.
Yeah, I spray
Oh,
simazine, and I spray simazine on my Egyptian wheat.
yeah.
I have a 2.5 gallon jug downstairs that I got of simazine that I'm spraying exactly where I plant my Egyptian wheat.
Okay.
You won't see a weed in there.
Huh. Well, my screening is all on the edges of my clover plot. So
Hmm.
it's going to get all oversprayed with IMOX anyhow when I do my spraying next week
Hmm.
because I cut my clover already. So I'm letting it bounce back. You have to have actively growing weeds before you spray them. So I'm going to let it bounce back. I'm going to go over with the sprayer and go around all the plot and all the screenings on the edges of the plots. So they're going to get sprayed as well. So it will act as a weed killer and a pre emergent, I guess. So we'll see what happens.
Do it.
Normally, if I get something in there, it's ragweed anyhow, and then deer love
Yeah.
ragweed, so I'm
Yeah.
not worried about it. I'm just
Ragweed.
I'm just looking for screening, not to hide me, but to hide the plot behind the screen because of roadways and neighbors. So
You're triggered. You're triggered by the neighbor.
I was chafed,
You're triggered.
all chafed.
Podcast 76. Stop planting brassicas.
Yeah. Who told you to do that?
Not me.
Get out of
Nope.
here.
Wasn't me. Stop planting brassicas.
Stop planting brassicas in May.
Ah, man, another trend. Whatever,
Silly. Silly.
whatever suits your fancy.
Now we're gonna get hate mail.
Probably. I don't care. I get hate mail every day.
It's silly. 76. We out.
76. Bye bye.